Hi there! Welcome to another day of our amazing coding journey. How are you feeling after your first full day of coding a real website? I hope all the new information is starting to make sense and you're feeling full of energy. We're starting a new section of our project today, and there's a lot to learn and do, but it will be fun. So let's dive in. Today we're focusing on two parts of our website, the hero section and the footer. Let's take a look at our prototype and see what we need to do. In the hero section, we're going to create a few things. On the left, we will create a main headline and a button below it. On the right side, we'll put an image. And of course, we're going to make it all look nice and modern to fit the style of our website. Now let's get back to our tasks. First, we will start with the hero section's layout. We'll organize it with the content on the left and an image on the right. Then, we'll learn about how to style the text, which is more than just changing the font size. We will use rem units instead of pixels in the whole project now. We will also add our beautiful call to action button, just like the one in the header. Next, we'll work on the image. We will position and style it together. Finally, we'll move on the footer section. We have so much work today, so let's go. We are starting with the hero section. But which one is it and where can we find it in the code? We already have a basic outline for it. That's right. The section that contains our client's text and image is indeed our hero section. As you can see, using the semantic section element, we've broken our page into separate parts. I think creating a class for the hero section will be a great starting point. What do you think? According to BEM, it will be our block and everything inside it will be elements of this block. So let's create a class for the section. Let's call it hero, making it clear which part this is. Why is it called the hero section and what exactly is it? It's the first thing people see when they visit your website. It's important because it can get people interested in your website or not. You can think about it as a banner designed to grab attention. Everyone knows that first impression is very important, and this section can shape how users see your website. It usually has a picture, some short text, and a call to action button. That's exactly what we will build in this part of the course. Now that we've added a class to the section, let's make the rest of the layout. We need to separate the area with the text and the button from the area with the image. In our prototype, the text is on the left and the image is on the right. How can we do this? Please take a look at my solution. We already have a section element that contains all the hero content. We need to create two more divs, one for the part with text and call to action, and another for the image. This way, we can group the elements and position them easier on the page. Let's do this. Create a div tag above the main heading and give it a class. According to BEM, let's call it hero content. Add a closing div tag below the paragraph and above the image. Great! Next, we need to create a similar div, but this time around the image. Create an opening tag above the image and add the hero image container class. Below the image, create its closing tag. Good job! Why have we written hero image container here? That's because I would like to add the hero image class to the EMG element, so to avoid duplicating the name, we've called this div its container, In other words, the box that holds the image. Great! Let's check what's changed on the page after adding new elements. And what has changed? As you can see, not much. We've just put the heading and paragraph together inside one div. It doesn't look like a big change, but it helps us later when we want to move things around on the page. Now, thanks to Flexbox, we can organize the elements and the text on the left and the picture on the right side. Sounds familiar? That's because we've done this before with the header's logo and navigation, remember? Let's start the process. The first task will be, I'm sure you've guessed it already. Yes, it's to create a Flex container. So which element should we choose? Of course, the section element. It contains the two divs we want to place next to each other, right? Let's go to the CSS file and create a Flex container. The first thing we will do is add a new comment below the header code. We're creating a new page section, so it's good to separate its code. Create a new comment and write Hero Section Styles. Then type the section class name Hero under the comment. Remember to include a dot at the beginning. Let's start by typing in the display property and setting its value to Flex. Check the browser to see how this change looks. Look at that! The elements are organized just as we want. The content is on the left and the picture is on the right. Nice! Alright, so what's next? How can we add some distance between the divs? Let's do it as we did in the header and add the justify content property with a space between value. Let's see what happens. Great! The Hero section is starting to look better and better. If you remember from the project prototype, the Hero section also had some space on all sides. So let's add some padding on each side. Add padding, say 150 pixels top and bottom and 80 pixels left and right. Check if the result looks good. It looks nice. The section is separated from the header and has space from the browser window edges. Next, let's vertically center the content. It would be great if the left and right parts were centered. How can we do this? Just like we did with the header, we'll use the Align Items property. Add this property to the Hero class and set it to Center. Now it looks even better, doesn't it? Awesome! So our Hero section layout is all set for further work. This chapter is like a warm-up for bigger challenges in the Hero section. Nothing you haven't seen in the course so far, right? So I invite you to the next video. We'll work on the content on the left. Grab a coffee or tea and let's start the next video. Hello again! Did you like our first steps with the Hero section? In this video, we'll go further. Since the layout is ready, we can dive into the Hero section details. We will change font sizes, add a call to action button, and switch pixels to rem units in our code. And I will explain why we should use rems instead of pixels. Ready to start? Let's go! We'll prepare the content first and add the right classes. Our text says, "Hi, I'm Jane Doe, full-stack developer with 5 years of experience in web development." It's okay, but we can make it better. We'll change this text like it's usually done in Hero sections, and we'll also add a button. Let's start by changing the text layout. Look at some examples online by searching for Hero section. Most of them have larger text, a heading, smaller text, a paragraph, and a button below. We can call it a pattern because it's repeated all the time. I think we can also add a subheading above the heading. That's our plan. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. This layout works perfectly. We already have a similar layout in our prototype, so let's start preparing the HTML code. I'd like the text, "Hi, I'm Jane Doe," to be on one line, "Full Stack Developer" below as a heading, and the rest of the text even lower as a paragraph. The first part of the text will be a subheading and h2 tag. So create opening and closing h2 tags under the div with the class hero content. Let's call it the hero content subheading class. We will insert the text "Hi, I'm Jane Doe" inside. Copy it and paste it into the h2 tag. Remove it below so that only the full stack developer text remains in the h1 tag. Great! Let's check the result. As you can see, h1 and h2 tags have similar styles and are the same size. We'll take care of that later. The most important thing is that we've split the text and now each part is in the correct HTML element. Let's add some styles to the text lines. The h1 tag will be our first target. We'll increase its size and see how it looks. Type the hero content heading class on a new line in the style.css file. Add a font size of, let's say, 42 pixels and see how it looks. This text should stand out. It's one of the first elements the user will see. Looks great, right? So let's move on. What else can we do? Now let's focus on the subheading. The font size is fine, but we can make it a little lighter. Below the heading, create a class called hero content subheading and add a font weight value of 500. Do you remember what this value means? We discussed it in one of the HTML lessons. We can set it using numbers from 100 to 900. A value of 500 means the text will not be that bold. By default, the font weight value in the inspector is set to bold, which means it's a value of 700. That's the default value for headings. You can read more about font weights in additional materials, but for now, let's continue. Let's create some space under the main heading so the text below is farther. Do you think we should use the padding property or margin? As you may remember from the CSS box model lesson, padding is the distance between the content and its border inside an element. At the same time, the margin is the space around the element, separating it from other elements. In this case, since we want to separate one element from another, we should use margin. How much margin do we want? Let's try 16 pixels and see the effect. It looks great. Let's keep this value. As you can see, when we only have a website prototype, we must be creative and determine the elements' distances and sizes. However, if you ever work in a team where there are also designers, it will be much easier because all values will already be provided to you. You won't have to check anything yourself, just enter the values specified by the designers. Alright, let's look at the paragraph now. I think it looks good, but let's change the font size to 18 pixels instead of 16 pixels to make it more visible. Write its class in the CSS file and then a font size property of 18 pixels. How does it look now? It looks great. We can move on. So what's our next step? We still need a button. Let's go to the HTML file and create it. It will be a call to action, just like in the header. So we will create an anchor tag here, not a button tag. As you can remember, the call to action is an anchor tag that looks like a button. The idea for this element is that when the user clicks on it, they will go to the contact section, making it easy for them to get in touch with us. In this video, we'll only create the button. We'll connect it to the contact section once we've finished working on it later. But for now, we can replace the href with a hash symbol. Let's create the anchor tag in the HTML file under the paragraph. Create opening and closing anchor tags. As we decided, href will be a hash. Also, write "contact me" inside it. Good job! Now let's check how it looks in the browser. As you can see, the new link looks exactly like all the other links. That's because of the styles we've added to all anchor tags on the website. But we want it to look like our call to action button in the header, right? How do we do this? Remember, we have already created styles for this type of button in the CSS file. The class name for these styles is call to action. So, can we just add this class to our link and everything will start working? Let's check. So add the class call to action to the new anchor tag. Well done! Now let's check in the browser if our link now looks like the button in the header. Wow! Amazing job! It looks exactly the same. That's the power of CSS classes. You can use classes many times, unlike IDs. You can create multiple buttons with the same class. That way, you write the styles only once and don't have to repeat them, like in the factory. As you can see, you're doing more and more advanced tasks with me in the project. I'm really proud of you. Keep going, it's worth it. We still have some interesting things in this video to discuss, so let's move on. Our text section is almost complete and looks quite good, right? One small thing to fix is the distance between the button and the text. Now the button overlaps the text. We need to create some space between them. What do you think? To which element should we add margin in this case? The bottom margin to the text or the top margin to the button? Please take a pause and think about your solution. And what is your intuition telling you? If you thought about adding a top margin to the button, then I'm sorry, but that's not the best solution. Why not? Because it's an element that we use in different places. What will happen if we add the top margin to the call to action element? And why is it a bad solution? It's because if we make this kind of change, in this case, we may affect the button styles in the header. That's why I would recommend adding a margin to the paragraph. It's unique so that we won't cause any style conflicts. What's your opinion? So let's add a margin bottom of 48 pixels to the hero content P class. Perfect. Now the hero section looks really professional. As you can see in front-end development, you need to be careful about every small detail. Everything in web projects happens for some reason. Big projects needs a lot of careful work from many people. Even a basic website takes time to create, especially when you're still learning. But don't worry, every day you code, you're getting better. Plus, you'll often see similar patterns in our work, which will help you write code by yourself as you gain more experience. They say practice makes perfect, right? So keep practicing and have fun doing it. It seems the text section is almost done. But wait, I don't want to finish this video yet because I'd like to discuss two new things with you. First, do you remember when I said we'd make our button rounded? Now is the time. I will introduce you to a new CSS property allowing you to round off various elements. Let's look at it. This property is border radius. You can use it to create rounded elements on the page or just a little round them. How does it work? Look at the examples. As a value, you enter how much you want the corners to be rounded, usually in pixels or percentages. We can define each corner's rounding separately or all at once. We will use the second, easiest technique for now, all at once. If you want to learn more about setting border radius for separate corners, check out the additional materials. Let's see how it works on examples on CodePen. I've prepared a simple demo to show you how it works. Take a look at the first example, border radius set to 10 pixels. As you can see, the corners of the element are slightly rounded. What happens when we change the value of 10 pixels to something much larger, like 100 pixels? The corners will be even more rounded and the element will look like an ellipse. You can also use percentage values. For example, we will create a circle by giving a 50% value. This is a cool tool for creating shapes and you can create some really weird figures with just this one property. You can also find many interesting generators on the internet. I've included links to the most interesting ones in the additional materials. Play with them in your free time and you will understand the border radius property even better. Let's get back now to the button. We want to slightly round it, right? Just not too much. What do you think? What value should we use? Closer to 10 pixels or closer to 100 pixels? How about a value the same as the default size of our font on the page, which is 16 pixels? Let's add a border radius property to the call to action class. Enter 16 pixel as a value and let's see the effect. It looks quite nice, doesn't it? What's more, both buttons changed their style at the same time. Great! The hero section looks great. We have finished work on the text and content. In the next video, you will learn more about working with images in HTML and CSS. But before we move on to images, I want to introduce you to another idea. It's about using the right units for the right things. Remember, we have already learned a bit about units, how they are absolute and relative. You have to know that in web development, there are as many theories about units as programmers. And it is true for many web development concepts, not only units. What is a bad practice for someone, for others is just right. Why is this happening? Programmers have different levels of knowledge and like to stick to solutions they have been using for years. It's not always easy to follow changes in the industry and it's even harder to adapt to them. That's why you'll probably often meet situations when you'll hear conflicting opinions on the same topic. The most important thing is creating your opinion based on experiences and experiments. It is also worth reading articles by experienced programmers. For example, one of the conflicting topics is using pixels for everything on a website. I think it's a bad practice, and I'll tell you why. If you look at our code, we have created a project that works, but we don't write it correctly. There are really many techniques to the topic of units on websites. However, in this project, we will use a very simple approach. We will use the rem unit everywhere, but with a small exceptions. As you may remember, rem is a relative unit. If we use it, everything on the site can become bigger when a user zooms a page. If we use pixels, nothing will grow. Choosing pixels can lead to accessibility issues. If someone wants to view our website on a larger scale, we should allow them to do it. And we can using relative units. So we will base our whole project on the root element font size. Everything else on the website will change size based on that. So if a user wants to look at the site with bigger text, everything else will get bigger too. Of course, this is a simple way to make websites, but it does the job. It's not perfect, but it's better than using pixels. You will find the best way for you as you get more skilled in making websites. For now, we'll use this simple method. I also want you to get practice with the rem unit because it's really useful. These days, the focus is on the project's proportion and fluidity, rather than fixed numbers. This approach makes it easier to create responsive projects that look good on various devices. Alright, we will change almost all sizes in our project from pixels to rems. Generally, one rem is equal to 16 pixels. It's a default font size value in most browsers, but one rem is not always 16 pixels. It is a relative unit that can stretch like a rubber band, right? But as we discussed, the user can adjust the font size. The root font size changes if they change to large or very large in the browser settings. Let's say at the large setting, the size is 24 pixels. Then one rem won't equal 16 pixels but 24 pixels. So each element sized in rems will become larger too. This is what we want. We will also keep things that don't need to grow, like borders or shadows, in pixels. Alright, let's move on. We've decided to use rems in the project. But how do we transform the current pixels to rems? Well, we need some math to do here. If one rem is 16 pixels, we need to divide each pixel value by 16. I'll show you some examples. One rem is 16 pixels. So, how many rems will be if we have 48 pixels? All we need to do is divide 48 pixels by 16. It will be 3, right? So 48 pixels equals 3 rems. So far so good, it's not that hard. But what if we have some other value, 100 pixels for example? Now the result is 6.25 rem. It's not easy to count it without a calculator, right? Doing this with each element can be frustrating. So what can we do? This is a well-known problem in web development. Many developers have tried to solve it and simplify calculations, including using the 62.5% method. You can also find it as a rem font hack. Where does this name come from? We just reduce the root font size to 62.5%, making one rem equal to 10 pixels. Life becomes easier. Want to convert 150 pixels to rem? No problem, it's then 50 rem. Everything seems super nice, but you need to know that this method has many downsides. I won't write much about it here, but I wanted to mention it because many tutorials promote it. I'm against it and don't recommend you use it in the future, especially in larger projects. If you're really interested in learning more about this method and its pros and cons, check out the article in the additional materials. Grace Snow provides an excellent description of it and alternative approaches. Josh Kumu also mentions this method in the article about units. He also explains why it's not recommended. There are many ways to deal with this strange math of converting pixels to rem. Many of them are complicated. I prefer simplicity, That's why we're using rems in this project for almost everything. And that's why we will also add a plugin to VS Code. It will do all the math for us on the fly. We won't calculate anything ourselves. Let's start with its installation. Click on the little squares icon in VS Code. That's extensions. At the top, in the search bar, type in px2rem. Click the one with the white image, and in the new window that appears, click Install. And that's it. We've installed a new plugin and can use it. But how? Let's look at the details in how to use. As you can see, just move the cursor to some pixel value, press Alt plus Z to convert to rem. Alt plus Z applies to Windows systems. If you have a Mac like me, you must use Option plus Z. Let's now see if this works. Go, for example, to the Hero Content heading, which font size we change to 42 pixels. Hover your mouse over this value and click to make the cursor appear. Then press Alt plus Z or Option plus Z on your keyboard and look at that. We have this value in the rem unit. Awesome! Let's change all values in pixels, starting from the call to action, through the header, header image, and header nav list, to the hero and its elements. Great, good job! Let's check in the browser if everything looks right. Excellent, everything is fine. In the end, I want to ensure you see what changed when we started using rem instead of pixels in our project. At first, it all looks the same, but when you zoom in, you start to notice the difference. Let's use our header as an example. We first set its height to 90 pixels. Then we switched that to rem, making it 5.625 rem, right? Come with me and let's see what the real height is using the inspector. It says 90 pixels, just like we planned. Now let's try something. Click on the three dots on the right side of your browser, go to Settings, and under the Appearance tab, set the font size to very large. Now in our project, check the height of the header. In the Computed tab, it says 135 pixels. The header grew because we changed the settings. To show you what would happen if we stuck with pixels, let's go back to our CSS file and set the height of the header to 90 pixels again. Now look at our project in the browser. You'll notice the header is much smaller. Back in the inspector, you'll see it's back to 90 pixels. As you can see, when you use pixels, the size doesn't change even when you change the settings in the browser. The header might still look okay, but what about the text? If a user finds the text too small and makes the font larger, the text set in pixels won't change. It will stay too small. I hope you understand this now. Wow, we've gone through a lot. We've learned about some complex things and I've tried my best to make it easy to understand. I hope you learned something new that you can use in future projects. Now let's work on our client's image. See you in the next video. Hello again and welcome back to another part about the hero section. We've done a lot already. Now we have the final hero part left, working with the image. Today we will talk about the size of images and make our image look great by making its corners round and adding a bit of shadow. After this lesson, we'll start working on another part of our project, the footer. So today we're going to code two parts of our website. We've got a lot to do, so let's get started. We already have the picture we'll be working on in VS Code. It's in a div with the class hero image container. The first thing we'll do is add a class to the picture itself. So write a class for the img element with me. Let's call it hero image. Well done! The first step is complete. Every img element on a website should have a few attributes. We'll discuss them now, one by one. First, we need to tell the computer where our image is. We can do this with an src attribute. We've already done this and it's working well. The image is showing up on the website, so everything is okay. The alt attribute is also important. It's easy to forget, but always remember to add it. Remember when we talked about this and I told you that this text will show if there's a problem with the picture and it doesn't show for some reason? It's important and you should always try to describe a picture in detail. As you can see, we've done this too. What else do we need? We need to set the height and width of the picture. We use width and height attributes to do this. Now I have something important for you. Most developers choose to declare the size and shape of the image in CSS instead of these HTML attributes. However, using width and height in HTML is a great approach for reasons I will explain. Imagine a website with pictures like an article page or a blog post. Let's talk about two scenarios, one where we don't declare height and width in HTML and another where we do. In the first situation, when we don't set the size of the picture, we'll see a strange effect. The bigger the picture and the slower the user's internet, the more we can see this effect. What is this? When we don't tell the size of the picture in HTML, the browser knows the picture is there, but if it doesn't know the size, it won't save any space for it while it's loading. This might sound a bit difficult, so let's make it simple. The browser must download the picture from the server to show it. The bigger the picture, the longer it takes. When the picture isn't there yet, we don't see it on the page, right? Then, after it's downloaded, the browser shows it. But what happens then? The text where the picture was supposed to be will move down. There will be a content change on the page, which might confuse the user. But can't we tell the size of the picture in CSS? Yes, we can, but there's a problem. The HTML code is loaded before the CSS code. Before the browser finds out from the CSS code what size the picture should be, it will be too late and the content will have moved. We can avoid this problem by setting the width and height attributes in the HTML code. This way, when the browser reads the HTML code, it will know that this picture takes up some space and will save it during loading. That's why it's best to use both HTML and CSS to tell the size of the picture. Thanks to HTML, we can make sure that the browser saves the right amount of space for the picture when the page loads, and thanks to CSS, we can change its size in more ways. This problem of content moving is called a cumulative layout shift and can be really bad. If you're interested in this, check the link in the additional materials to an article written by developers from Google Chrome. Especially read the part about images without dimensions. Alright, let's add dimensions to the image now. But how are we supposed to know what they are? We can go into the inspector in DevTools and then hover over the address in the src attribute. After a moment, the dimensions will appear. As you can see, it is 450 and 300 pixels. Which value refers to height and which one refers to width? If you look at our picture, the width should be larger than the height, right? So, 450 pixels refers to the width and 300 pixels to the height. Let's write this down in HTML. Please add the width attribute with a value of 450 in quotation marks. Then below, create a height attribute with a value of 300. As you noticed, we don't have to use pixels here. Just the number is enough. Great! We told the browser, hey, please leave some space for this image before it loads. This area should be 450 pixels wide and 300 pixels height. So the first thing to remember about images, always add the width and height attributes to them. Now we can move on to CSS and work on our image. The first thing we will do will be to fit the hero image container to the size of the image. What am I talking about? Look at this. If you highlight the image in the inspector, you will see it is 450 to 300 pixels. But look at the dimensions of the container in which this image is located. Do you see? The image container is 6.5 pixels taller than our image. We don't want this. It would be best if the image filled the full container area. Where did this space at the bottom come from? After all, we didn't add padding or anything that could make this div bigger, right? This is a common problem in web development. Where does it come from? Get ready for a bit of theory now. Do you remember when we were learning about the display property? We discussed inline, block, and non-values, right? Images have a display property set to inline by default. What does it mean? First, it means that the elements share a row with other elements. Plus, if they don't fit, they go to a new line. But we didn't mention one important thing then. Inline elements line up along the baseline of the text. Because images are inline elements by default, they align just like text along the baseline. In most fonts, some letters like Y, G, P, J, and Q have parts that go below the baseline. These parts are known as descenders. Inline elements, including images, keep some space below the baseline to make room for these descenders. So now we know why this space is there. How do we remove it? We can change the display value to block. This makes the element fill the whole space and leaves no extra space below. Let's try it out. In the CSS file, find the hero image class. Add the display property set to block. Now check the result. Awesome! The container and the image now have the same dimensions. No more unnecessary space. Please remember this trick, it's often very useful. Let's keep going. Our image looks good, but we can improve it further. Let's add some rounded corners, just like we did for the call to action button. We will add a border radius set to 12 pixels. The effect is quite good, but let's add one more effect here. A cool blue border. You remember our border lesson, right? We can customize its thickness, style, and color. I'm thinking of a blue image border. Add the border property to the hero image class, starting with the size. 2 pixels sounds good. Then add solid for the style, giving us a nice line. Finally, please choose a color. Let's use the one we used for the call to action button, 2C74B3. Now let's check how the image looks in the browser. Quite nice, isn't it? We will add a shadow for the final touch to give it some 3D effect. To do this, we'll need to use a new CSS property, box shadow. The box shadow property in CSS has several components. You don't have to remember all of them. Just be familiar with how to use them. You can always use generators. Let's use one right now. Search for box shadow generator Mozilla on Google. It will be the first link on mozilla.org. This resource overall is excellent for learning everything about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It's a great source of web development knowledge. Now let's create a shadow. Start by clicking the plus sign to add a shadow. You'll see the rectangle that previews the changes. We already have a green shadow, so let's change its color to black. Just move the small wheel to the bottom left corner like I do. Our goal is to have most of the shadow at the bottom of the element. So how can we do this? Let's understand what positions X and Y are. Position X is the horizontal line from left to right, and position Y is the vertical line from top to bottom. As you can see, the shadow moves along a horizontal line when I move the position X value. If I change the position Y value, the shadow moves along the vertical line. That's how it works. What should we do if we want the shadow to be at the bottom? We should set position X to 0 pixels because we don't want the shadow moving left or right. So we're going to change position Y only. Let's put it at 5 pixels. That will be just right. The next element is blur, a cool effect that makes shadows look softer and less sharp. Let's give it a value of 10 pixels. We also have spread, a value defining the shadow size. 0 pixels is too small and 5 pixels is too large. So let's set it at 3 pixels. Perfect. We will do one more thing because our shadow is still too intense. We will change its transparency. Move the slider at the bottom where the color is black to left. You'll see the shadow getting lighter. Let's set this value to 0.3 for example. Perfect, now our shadow is ready. We also have the CSS code ready to go. All you need to do is copy and paste it into our code. Let's see the result. What do you think? The picture has become more 3D, right? The effect is really amazing. What about adding this shadow to the button as well? Paste it again in the call to action class in the CSS file and let's check the effect. Wow, it looks great, right? It may be hard to remember all of this, but you can always use a generator, and there are lots of them on the internet. Don't worry about remembering this, just know where to find the answer. This generator is all you need to work with Box Shadow. You can also find a lot of ready-to-copy Box Shadow examples online by simply searching Google. That's all for this episode. The hero section is ready. Along the way, you've learned new things that will be useful in your future projects. Let's move on to the footer section now. See you there! Hello again, Coder Woman. Here's another workout at our coding gym to improve your HTML and CSS muscles. Our task in this video is to work on the footer. We're doing this now, even though it's at the bottom of the page, because it's quite easy. What do we need to do with the footer today? Let's take a quick look at the prototype. You'll see the copyright text on the left side of both footers, in the prototype and a sample footer from the internet. We've done it already, right? The biggest challenge for this video is what's on the right side, the social media links. We will also change the footer layout to make it look like the prototype. The prototype doesn't show everything, like hover effects or animations. But in this video, we'll add cool effects to the social media icons. Ready to get started? Let's go! But before we get started, we need a plan. The copyright text will go on the left and 3 social media icons will be on the right. These icons will be Facebook, YouTube, and GitHub. Each icon will link to a social media page. So we'll create anchor tags, 3 of them, each with an EMG tag inside. Remember how we worked on the header logo? We put an anchor tag with a class header logo and an img tag inside it with a class header image. We're going to do the same thing here. Let's first create 3 anchor tags, then we'll decide how to place them in the footer like in the prototype. Are you ready to code? Please find the footer tag in your HTML file. Its content should be the same as mine for now. We have a paragraph with some text. Remember, this will be on the left side and the social media icons will be on the right. Should we add our icons above the paragraph or below? Let's put them below. Organizing them this way will be easier. Let's start by creating the first icon below the paragraph. Go to a new line and create the first anchor tag, its opening and closing tag. Let's start with the link to the Facebook page. So, add href as facebook.com. Great! But the link won't work until we add some content. So let's create an img tag inside the anchor tag. Remember that img is a self-closing tag. Now we need to add a src attribute to our image. Now it's time to add social media icons to the project. We need to look at the course materials. You'll find a folder named Icons. Inside are lots of different icons which we'll use. For now, we're interested in 3: Facebook, GitHub, and YouTube. Drag each of these to the Images folder. Good job! Now we can use them. Adding an image to HTML code isn't new to us, right? So I hope you know how to input the src attribute and the file path. We need to add the Facebook icon. Please pause the video now and try to do it yourself. Did you succeed? Did the Facebook image appear in the browser? If yes, congratulations. If no, don't worry. You just need a little more practice. So, please write together with me. The Facebook icon is in the same place as the other images. First, we enter the folder name, Images, and then, after the slash, we enter the file name, Facebook, with the extension svg after the dot. And that's all. Let's check how it looks in the browser. Now, let's add the remaining 2 anchor tags and images. Please copy the anchor tag we've created and paste it twice below. Perfect. It's time to update their attributes. Change the href attribute name from Facebook to YouTube in the first copied link. Do the same for the img tags src attribute. Switch the name from Facebook to YouTube. In the third link, change both names to GitHub. Let's check if all icons appear on the page and if the links take us to the right pages. As you can see, the icons are on the page. Hover your mouse now over the Facebook icon. The cursor changes to a hand symbol, right? It tells us it's a link and we can click it. So click it to see if it takes us to the Facebook page. It works great. Now please check the other icons. They're all working correctly. Awesome. But there's a little thing we can make better. What if the social media pages opened in a new window? Remember how to do that? Go back to our HTML file. We use the target attribute set to blank to open a link in a new window. Add this attribute to all our anchor tags. Remember, there's an underscore at the start of the blank value. Good job! Now it's time to style the icons. We will first add width and height attributes for each one. Do you remember how important it is? I hope so. Let's set the value to, let's say, 24 pixels. Alright, everything is ready. It's time for a test. Yes, the icons are on the page and have dimensions we set in the width and height attributes. And look at that! They are lined up next to each other. That's what we wanted. There's another thing I need to say here. Let's take a look at the prototype for a moment. As you can see, the icons are next to each other, but they are all located on the right side of the footer. On the left, there's a copyright text. Do you know what we should do now with the footer to align its content as in the prototype? Here's a task for you. Try to align the icons on the right side of the footer and the copyright text on the left without my help. We've done something like this before. Do you remember working on the header? And do you remember how we placed the logo on the left and the navigation on the right? Now pause and experiment a little. I will wait here for you. Don't worry if you can't do it. We'll do it together step by step. Okay, pause the video and get to work. And how did it go? Yes, I agree, it was a hard task. Let's do it together now so you can compare your solution to mine. The main thing to remember is how to line up elements next to each other. To do that, we can use Flexbox. Why? Because every Flex container lines up elements from left to right by default. So we should create a Flex container by adding a display property with the value Flex to one of the footer's elements. But which one? That's a good question. Let's look at the header code for a moment. The display property with the Flex value is in two places, the header itself and the header nav list. The header nav list has all navigation links and it is a Flex container. Let's try to do it in a similar way. Let's start with preparing the footer. Let's add a class to it similar to the header. Let's just name the class footer. Then in the CSS file, below the hero section, we will start creating a new section. So let's first write a new comment separating the footer code from the rest of the code. As the comment, write footer styles. Great! Below that, on a new line, write the footer class and let's first turn it into a Flex container. We will add display Flex and check in the browser if anything has changed. Great! Now the icons are not under the copyright text but next to it. So far so good. But it's not the end yet. The copyright text is in the right place. But we need to move icons to the right. How can we do that? Do you remember what property we used in the header? Yes, the justify content property set to the space between value. That's how we can add space between elements. Let's add this property to the footer class and see if it fixes our problem. Oops, this is not the result we were expecting, right? The elements are separated, but as you can see, each icon was treated separately, resulting in huge spaces between them. It doesn't look like that in the prototype, right? Think again about the header. How we moved all navigation items to the right. In the header, all navigation items are treated as one big element. Why? It's because we grouped them with the UL tag, right? So that's our solution. We need to group the icons with one element. Let's put them all into an extra div. Please make an opening div tag above the first anchor tag and a closing tag below the last one. Let's check if it works. Wow, we made it! We've moved them all together. Perfect. That's what we wanted. Did you get it done like this? It was challenging, right? But after doing it together, I hope you understand how it works and how to do it yourself. Let's add some style to the footer now to make it look even better. We will start with the padding to make elements some space from the browser edges. Let's copy the padding from the header and paste it into the footer to keep it consistent. Great, now the footer looks even better. And what's more, both parts of the website have the same padding. Now I want to add a blue border. It should be like the hero image, solid style, same blue color, but thinner, only 1 pixel instead of 2 pixels. And I want this only at the top of the footer. Do you know how to do that? Please pause the video and try to do it yourself. Alright, now let's do it together to check your work. We want the border only at the top, right? So we'll use the border top property, not just the border. If we use the border property, it would be on all sides, right? We write its width first, 1 pixel, then its type, which is solid. Finally, we set the color to be the same as the hero image. So we can just copy that color from there. And that's it. Let's check the result. It looks good, doesn't it? The general layout of the footer is ready, so it's time to style the icons. Here's a little secret. Look at the prototype. We'll use the same social media icons in multiple places in the footer and the About and Contact sections. You understand what that means, right? It means that we'll write their styles in the global styles. It also means we won't use the footer name as a block in a class names for social media elements. Now, what are we going to do with icons? I tell you what. We'll add some padding, background color, so they look like round buttons, and a shadow. We'll also add 2 cool effects. When a user moves the cursor over an icon, its background color will change, and the icon will move a little up. Sounds fun, right? Let's write the code together. First, we need to add the right class names. We'll start with the div which contains all the icons. We can name its class social media. It's not only for the footer. We will use it in other places, so social media is a good blog name here. We'll add the class social media link for each anchor tag. And social media image for each image. Okay, it's ready. So let's move to the CSS file. First, let's turn the social media class element into a flex container. This way, we can add some extra space between the icons using the gap property. Please write the class social media and add the display property with the value flex. That's a great start. Now let's add some style to the anchor tags. Write the class social media link on a new line. We want to make the icons round buttons, so let's add some padding. It should be the same on all sides to make a perfect circle. Let's add a padding of, say, 0.75 rem. Let's add a background color now to see the full effect. We will add a darker blue from our color palette with the code 144272. Add it as a background color and check the result. As you can see in the browser, the icons may look strange for now, But we're not finished yet. Do you remember how to make a round element in CSS? By using a border radius with a value of 50%. Let's add this to social media link. It looks better, right? But something is still not right. The icons look like egg shapes. Why did this happen? Do you remember our talk about images in the previous video? They are inline elements by default, treated like text. And we have the same issue here. If you look at the inspector, the images have some space below them, the space for descenders. Do you remember what we did then? We changed the display property of the image to block. Let's do the same here and see if it fixes our problem. Awesome! The icons look great. They're rounded perfectly. The image element has a height and width of 24 pixels, and the anchor tag is twice as big thanks to the padding. Everything is pixel perfect. Congratulations! Let's also add a gap of the same value as the padding, 0.75 rem. The icons are looking really good now. We still have one small change to make. Centering the content of the footer vertically. Right now the copyright text is a bit higher than the icons, right? Let's add the align items property with the center value. Great, our footer looks quite similar to the one in the prototype. There's one more thing left, adding transitions. We want the background color to change and the icon to move up when the mouse hovers over it. So let's do it. Let's start by changing the background color. And this is your next task. Yes, I believe in you and know you can do this. Here's a tip. Add the transition property to the social media link class. Please look through the code we've written so far for inspiration. The background color should change to 2C74B3. We used it before, remember? Pause the video now and write the code to change the icon's background color when the user hovers over it. And how did it go? Did you code it? Let's do it together now and you will see if your solution is the same. First, we need to decide the background color when the user hovers over the icon. So let's type the social media link class and add the hover state. Inside, we set the background color to 2C74B3. Let's see if it works. Hover over a link in your browser. Yes, the background color changes, so we're moving in the right direction. What's next? We need to add the transition property to the anchor tags. So let's add the transition property to the social media link class, starting with the property name we want to change, in our case the background color. After that, we'll specify the duration of this change. Let's use the same value we've used in our project. What was this value again? Let's check the call to action class. It's 0.3 seconds, so let's add that value. As you can see, the call to action example is a great inspiration. We also changed the background color there, so if you use this example to solve the task, well done! Take a look at the browser. Now the effect is really cool. The color change is smooth now. But wait, there's more. We will also move up the icon when the user hovers it. And now I will show you how. And what may surprise you, it's not very hard if you remember our lesson about position property. Do you remember the relative value? It allowed us to move the element from its initial position using the top, right, left or bottom properties. Just as we can move a book on the table, we can move an element that has a relative position property in any direction. Let's see how it would work with icons. Let's assign a position property to the anchor tag and set it as relative. Great! Now we need to think about the final effect and how to write it in the code. We want the icon to move up a little, right? We can achieve this by setting the top property to a negative value or the bottom property to a positive one. The choice is yours, it doesn't matter. The important thing is to remember that you can also use negative values for top, bottom, left and right. First, I will show you how to do it with the top property. Let's set the initial state, which is top with value 0. With this code, icons are at their original place. Then, in the hover section, we will set it to minus 0.5 rem. We don't want a big jump, just a little one. Now let's check if it's what we want. Yes, great! The element moved up. That's because we reduced its top property value. Now let's try the solution with the bottom property to compare. Here we add 0.5 rem because we are counting from the bottom. We need to add 0.5 rem in this case. Please change the top property to the bottom and remove the minus sign from its value. Wow, it works just as well! You can choose any version. I'll use the top version to keep a negative value example in our code. Alright, the final step is adding the top property to the transition. Remember how we added two properties to the transition? One after another, separated by a comma. So, write a comma, then the top property, or bottom if you choose that, and set it to 0.3 second. Great job! Check the effect in the browser. Do you like it? I hope so. Our project looks better and better. You're doing a great job with your learning. I hope this project will be a great starting point for your other projects in the future. You are free to use the code we're writing. Alright, that's it for today. Take a break because we've coded a lot of new things today. And get ready because tomorrow we'll start the new section about me. It will be fun with new things to learn and some tasks for you. See you then!